and welcome to the end of 2017, also known as the worst year in human history.
Woo.
Well, I mean, besides, like, the extinction of the dinosaurs, and, like, maybe a lot of World War II.
I don't know, I think the dinosaurs being extinct kind of was at least for humanity, that might have been a bit of a net gain.
Yeah, but now we don't have T-Rexes, and we can't make fun of their tiny arms.
Well, at least they're extinct and not us.
Oh, we could, like, shoot them with guns, and they would die.
Would they? Would a normal gun work on a T-Rex? I've never seen any kind of simulation or anything run on
Video games!
What kind of gun it would take to kill a T-Rex? I get on that.
I saw a documentary named Tomb Raider Anniversary on PSP. I think that conclusively finished it.
True.
Anyways, welcome to the year-end review for IndieCent, and thank God this year is over.
Happy 2018. Will this be going up in 2018?
It will be going up in 2017, hopefully.
Wow!
Happy 2017.
You still haven't made it yet, guys.
We're recording this, let's see, on the 19th. So, like, we've pretty much finished this year. And I'm tapped out, so I'm not going to make any big last-minute purchases for a while. And I'll just count those to 2018, so whatever.
Yeah.
But, anyways, what we're going to be doing here today after we do a regular what we've been playing segment is to go over our five favorite games we played this year, not came out this year, but played this year, because who gives a shit about being current? And a few odd games that we think deserve mention, and some of the worst games we played this year. There's no set amount for the weird games or the bad games, and what we'll do is we'll do our opening segment, then go the worst games we played this year, then the weird games we played this year, then our favorites. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Alright, let's go ahead and get started. So, Danny, what have you been playing?
Well, mine's going to be really brief because Christmas season's a busy time for my line of work, so I've been working a lot. I sat down one day and played a bit more Resident Evil 4. Got past the castle, and wow, I thought that was going to be the last area.
No thanks, bro.
I played up to the Krauser fight and haven't touched it since because, wow, that's not a fun fight. Like, I was able to get up, like, in my first, like, without dying, I was able to get up to this bit where I'm on, like, a tower, and he's morphing into this Resident Evil beast. I can't remember what they're called. I haven't played many. Los Plagas. And, there's a timer counting down. I guess I have to beat him within that time. I don't know, because he always kills me before the timer can go off. I tried to survive until the timer goes off just to see what happens, and he killed me, like, right at the 3-second mark. That was the longest I could last. That's not a fun boss fight. A lot of it seemed pretty fun, but then that just bit was, I don't know. That's where the control scheme does not work well with the kind of movement it seems to be asking from me. So I haven't touched it since then. Instead, I started replaying Final Fantasy 15 because all the DLC from the first season passes out, and I haven't. Last time I played that was like the very beginning of January. Was when I finished my first playthrough, 90 hours long. And I was looking through the update list over the course of last year, and wow, they've added a lot. So I wanted to go back and see how different the game is. I'm like 8 hours in. I played a bunch last night because I was just like, I know it's 11 p.m. I'll just play for a couple hours, and I played until like 5 a.m. because it's easy to get lost in that game. And I haven't really noticed anything new yet. I haven't gotten up to any of the DLC points and or any of the bits where the story kind of dipped, which is what they've kind of been patching, adding more story stuff. So it's been pretty much the same game for me so far, and it's still a fun game. Like, I'm just replaying a bunch of stuff that I played a year ago. That core gameplay loop is still really fun to me for some reason. I still just enjoy it. They added near music, which I like. I just listen to that on repeat on the long car rides. That's fun. But yeah,
anything else?
Don't have much to say about that, or that's all I've been playing. I've just been working a lot and haven't really had time to play much.
Right.
Oh, one more. I tried to start up Demon Souls on my PS3 to play through that before the servers go offline in February, and that game is broken.
I could have told you that.
Like, I posted some clips on my Twitter. You break a few boxes, the frame rate just dies and stays dead. Sound effects were glitching out consistently throughout the world. I got stuck behind a bench in a corner, and I was just running and trying to break it, and nothing was happening. I was just like, guess I'll die. And then I hit forward on the stick again, and it exploded and shot me across the room.
The game is trying to protect you from playing it.
Like, I played that game for a half hour. I tried to play it, and it was like it was bordering, if not unplayable.
To be perfectly honest, if it was working perfectly, you probably hate it even more.
I tried to quit out to the main menu when I was done, and it was just stuck in a loading screen. Like, the loading screen, it didn't crash because the screen wasn't frozen. It was just playing the eternal loading animation loop. And I tried to go to my PS3 menu, and that was broken too. And so I just had to cut off my console in the middle of loading, which you shouldn't do, but I didn't have a choice. So I don't know, maybe I need to reinstall it. Maybe something happened in installing, but wow. It felt a lot like Dark Souls 1 when it was working, which I liked. Gonna be talking about that later.
It's like if Dark Souls was designed by people who genuinely hate you. And I know people joke about Dark Souls already being that, but no, Demon Souls actively fucks with you.
And I want to experience that, but it doesn't work.
As for myself, instead of going back into Doki Doki, I'm gonna put that aside for a bit. I was in the mood for an RPG, so I looked at what I had on my Steam account, and I remembered, oh yeah, I still haven't played Knights of the Old Republic. Boy. I think it's fitting that I played these two games right when The Last Jedi was coming out, because the first Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, is very much The Force Awakens, and the second one is like The Last Jedi on fucking steroids and cutting itself. And for those who don't know, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic was a huge deal when it first came out. It was one of the first major Western RPGs with like mainstream appeal that came out during the big 3D era when the Xbox, PS2, and GameCube were around. It was an Xbox exclusive. It was super popular. It constantly got called one of the best games ever. And as I'm currently close to finishing it, I'm just wondering, really?
Baldur's Effect.
Yeah. The first game and the second game were made by different developers, and the first game you can tell from just like a few seconds of play that yes, this is a BioWare game. I have been playing a lot. I've been playing a bit of BioWare's more recent franchises this year with Dragon Age and Mass Effect. And yeah, I can very much tell where their basic structure for those games came from just playing this. It's interesting because there's a lot of good ideas here, but it's kind of morally fucked. Like, there's an entire mission... Hang on, I need to yell at my dogs.
I don't know why, but that is totally cracking me up. Oh, boy. I'm good.
I'm keeping that in.
Good.
Anyways, Knights of the Old Republic is kind of morally fucked. And you know what? It's over 10 years old. I'm gonna spoil it. You were the bad guy. You were the bad guy, Darth Raven, the whole time, and you had like your mind replaced by the Jedi Order. And like, I am shocked by just how poorly the game handles this twist. It's honestly astounding. Like, the way it works is you can either react with understandable rage or, nah, you were right, I was bad. I'm like, what?
I guess that explains why the dark side options in that game are like kind of dark.
No, they're not dark. They're stupid. Like, some of them are actually not easier, which is supposed to be the point. Some of them are just like needlessly cruel, like doing the thing, but then deciding at the last minute, nah, I'm gonna keep this neener, which I'm not joking. It does not know how to deal with the gray of this, and it really becomes a problem because it brings up really heavy subjects like slavery, and it falls flat on its fucking face every time. There's an entire world you have to go to, the Wookiee planet, where a light side playthrough has to like free the Wookiees from enslavement by an evil corporation, but you don't actually get to kill any slavers until the very end of the segment. You have to talk your way out of it. I'm like, they're slavers. They're working with the Sith. I am already mowing down Sith by the fucking, like, bagful. Just let me have this. And then, of course, one of your, no, there's actually two party members who used to be slaves. Because, of course. And one of them, in the good side path, you have to keep reminding her of her Jedi code when she should be understandably upset about slavery. Fuck!
This sounds a lot like a game made by the Mass Effect developers.
Yup. And, of course, there's a surprising lack of racist options, which I'll give them credit for. But I will admit, there are really good ideas. It introduces all 9 of your party members terribly, but their character quests are genuinely well done and give some depth, and there's like some really good ideas. Like, Canderous is basically just a prototype Stein, and he's wonderful, and I love him. And but the best character is definitely Joel, this really old ass Jedi who left the Order because he got sick of their hatred of their like fear of emotion and just went off in the woods and fucked off forever. And he keeps questioning everything you do, but you're like, oh yeah, he makes a good point. He feels like the only character in the game who uses the Force who's an actual person and not like a robot or a psycho-fascist. Oh, and also Malik is a shitty villain. He's just a big, bald guy with a metal jaw who is like, ha ha ha, I'm evil, eviler than you. That is basically the summary of his dialogue. But the second game, the Sith Lords, was made by Obsidian. And I have only played a few hours of it, but I'm already sure that, yeah, I love this. This is absolutely my shit. The first game is like a completely broken fucking mess design-wise. Like, they try to adapt an existing Star Wars tabletop game, but they forgot to do anything with like half of the systems they adapted. So the end result is a very broken system where if you don't put enough in strength or dexterity, you are useless. And like half the skills you learn serve no purpose in the game whatsoever. Stealth, useless. Security, literally a junk stat. It does nothing. I could go on and on. That is fixed with Obsidian's sequel. And plus they'd fix that whole morally fucked thing by making everyone a war criminal and having your mentor be a clearly libertarian space witch who is very clearly evil and is using you for something, and it's just like, hey, you gotta roll with this. It's so fucked up, and I love that the villains are just like, they're not like cartoonishly evil, they're like, what the fuck happened to you, evil? Like, one guy is literally the void itself. And it's like, I really want to get back to that game as soon as I finish the first one, because there are just so many cool, fucked up ideas in it. I am amazed they actually let Obsidian publish that. It's just magical. It's a shame it was mostly unfinished, and even with the patch, there's like going to be some weird missing story elements, but I think it's still worth the ride. And that's pretty much it for me. So, Elmo?
Oh. I remember looking up the Old Republic once and being a little bit surprised, because a lot of like what you said about like the slavery and lots of moral choices that don't really work and stuff like that, but I also saw stuff about like just outright racism and like one guy who was like a paedophile or something. But then I remembered that I'd actually looked up the wrong thing. I'd looked up the Old Republican.
But to be honest, though...
You looked up Drakengard 1.
The funny thing is, you were actually kind of right. There is one douchebag in the first game called Zor, who is just the biggest piece of shit. I swear. But go on.
Oh boy. Oh, it's so tempting when you were talking about Resident Evil 4, because I know that nothing has been spoiled for you, and I don't want to spoil anything for you, and this is nothing to do with the plot. But when you talk about the Krauser fight, it's just like, so that thing about the Krauser fight, that thing, do you know the thing about it? The thing? You know?
The thing?
That thing with... No. The only other two things I've been playing lately, I've been playing Uncharted, which, it's nice and good, and I like it, but I'm really surprised that I've always had the idea of Uncharted like it was the essential PS3 purchase.
It's
like,
not.
It sucks.
Yeah, it's... The combat's really boring and bad, and the platforming is okay, but none of the platforming is exactly challenging.
Uncharted sucks. All of Uncharted is bad.
Oh.
The essential PS3 purchase is Drakengard 3.
My essential PS3 purchase is the beginning of a question that I cannot end, because... why?
It's Demon Souls.
Yep.
The Last of Us sucks.
The only other thing I've been playing is, since it's nearly Christmas, I remembered that I still haven't played something that my friend got me last Christmas, which is the Fire Emblem Game Boy Advance game. The one with Lynn and Eliwood and Hector.
I think that's
it's
like
really
the fifth game, but because of the weird localization for the series, they just called it Fire Emblem. And the Lynn stuff wasn't there in the first place. They added that so new players could have a tutorial.
Yeah, it's like a 10-level tutorial, which is a little grating, but it is still a really good game. Probably one of the best Fire Emblems I've played.
You have not played Path of Radiance, have you?
I have.
Then how can you say that's one of the best ones you've ever played?
Well, I said one of the best. It's
Path
like
of Radiance is the only good
one.
Fire Emblem game. Fight me.
Yeah, the DS one is okay. And you know, I'm in Radiant Dawn is just fantastic.
Do not get me fucking started on Radiant Dawn.
I really would, because I played Radiant Dawn near the beginning of the year, and now I'm thinking like I could have given this a spot on one of my lists. But no, I've been looking back at buying lots of Game Boy Advance stuff, because I haven't looked at how many Steam games I own recently, but I'm pretty sure it's above 700. So I buy a lot more games than I have the time to play, but I haven't actually played a Game Boy Advance game, not counting this Fire Emblem one, for years, because I've had a Game Boy Advance for like 20 years of my life, and I've had actual consoles with real games for about 6 or 7 years of my life, so I've been catching up with all these console things and just ignoring the Game Boy Advance, even though I still haven't played Metroid Fusion
I tried to go back and play a Game Boy Advance game this summer. I felt like I couldn't see anything on the screen.
You gotta emulate.
Gotta get an SP.
You gotta get the thing for the GameCube.
Oh yeah, the Game Boy player.
Oh yeah, I played Mega Man 02 on that, and I did not get far because Mega Man 02 is bullshit.
I played some of Leaf Green on a GameCube. And that's a better way to play Pokemon. I can't wait for the Switch Pokemon game in like 5 years.
And it'll just be a crappy Stadium clone.
No. Instead, we'll get a proper Pokemon game on the Switch.
Do you remember Pokemon Coliseum and Pokemon Coliseum XD?
I don't. I wasn't allowed
Gale of
to
Darkness was
like
actually
Pokemon
really
as a
good.
kid.
Oh my god, I just remembered Coliseum sucks so bad. Like Nintendo Power was hyping it up for months, and they were just going on about how morally complex it is because you're like stealing Pokemon and they're all corrupt and stuff, and it's just like, it is one of the shortest campaigns ever with only like 40 Pokemon to find in this very barren, boring world that still has the tone of a Pokemon game. And the villain turns out to be the mayor of like the random first town, and he spins around and suddenly he looks like Dr. Eggman. It's
At least
so
Gale of
bad.
Darkness was good.
Yeah, I'm just saying, don't get your hopes up for a console release because Nintendo always disappoints on that.
Well, I'm done with what I'm playing, so that's basically it.
And
I'm buying Game Boy Advance stuff.
And with that, let's go ahead and get into our year in review.
Probably
All
gonna
right.
be some nice intermission music here.
Anyways, let's go ahead and start with our bad games, and I want an idea of how many everyone's picked. I picked 7.
Oh, I thought we were doing 5 for each.
Oh, that's fine.
I did 5.
Okay, then let's just go one at a time and switch between us, picking one game off the list in whatever order we want, and then I'll just end with more than everyone else. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Then I'll start us off by telling you all about Black Rainbow. Fuck. Black Rainbow is one of 2 hidden object games I played this year. No, wait, 3. I forgot about Tormentium, which was actually really interesting and good. But Black Rainbow is one of the most perplexing games I've ever played. I did an article on it at the beginning of the year, and basically it is a hidden object game where you're some like explorer in the desert, and like some sort of black cloud thing happens, and then your village is on fire, and you escape by plane, and then you're getting chased around by incredibly racist African stereotypes, and then nonsense. An endless string of nonsense put together with Mad Libs. I don't even know how to describe it, because wherever you do in it, it just gets progressively more nonsense, and not to the point it doesn't even register as stupid. It just registers as, what? To give you an idea, once you go down this tomb, you have to like meet all these different magical beings to get to like some sort of flying kingdom where no one lives apparently, except like the village chief you met earlier for some reason, and you have to keep finding random doodads. And the moment that I almost broke was when I was traveling undersea, and I met like some guy undersea, and he called my character by name, and then said, "I'm the Sea King." I'm just like, sure.
Did he evolve from a Goldine?
It is never explained what the evil thing is, by the way. It's just, what? And I took so many screenshots, and I need to just share them in the chat because you have to see this shit to believe it. It's fucking what? Just give me a second here. I got a folder. Okay, here we are. Oh, I didn't
Not
take
just
as
one or
many
two
as
pictures, a folder.
I did not take as many as I thought, but I didn't save the best one. Oh, great. I didn't save the image of the guy in the quicksand, and he just has his hands up, but an expressionless face, just like, except his mouth is closed. High quality game. Oh God. Let's go with Danny.
Well, unfortunately, most of my the games on my worst list were ones played on this show. I don't really play bad games much. Like I don't really have any reason to. So I don't play games unless I have a good idea of what it is and if I'll like it. So most of the worst games I played on that were from this. Like
You're welcome.
So instead of talking about them, since we've already talked about them, I've already expressed my dislikes, I'll just run through the ones I put in my 5. Gunman Clive is the worst.
Oh. Oh no.
Fantastic.
Samurai Jazz and Verdict Guilty. Those are the ones from this show. Which leaves 2 more, which I wouldn't exactly say were bad. They were just not really good ones I played this year.
How about we save them and let Elmo go so we can keep some semblance of order with how we decided this.
Okay, I gotta talk quickly because there's 2 things that I need to quickly mention. The first is that I did not trust myself to be able to talk about games that we have played this year and also make it interesting and stuff that we've already mentioned. So unofficially, my worst list would probably have Chantilly's and it would probably have Samurai Jazz. But to be honest, Samurai Jazz didn't inspire much of a reaction in me either way, so that was And unofficially, my best list would probably have the Stanley Parable and Lisa and Alan Wake and Techno Babylon and Still Life and The Magic Circle. Which is actually 6 games, but just pretend it's 5. And the other thing to say is that when we get to interesting games, I wrote them in the form of giving them jokey awards. So, for instance, the first one I've got written down is the Narcoleptic Hiker Award for Unsteady Pacing. Goes to God of War 2, which I played and enjoyed, and it's good. But there's the part where you get to the Island of Time, and then you spend 3 hours doing nothing to advance the plot because you have to go to a temple where you fight a barbarian king who's dead, but he's alive. And then you take his hammer and get to the temple to fight a Medusa knockoff, to get further into the temple to fight the Cerberus that just ate Jason so you can get the Golden Fleece so that you can find a secret passage that delivers you back to the temple that you were in 3 hours ago. Except now, you can reflect a single low-damage fireball that a wall was spitting at you, so it's good. But
that's how The Legend of Zelda works and has worked for over 30 years.
Yeah, you replace Link with Kratos and it just doesn't work. But as much as I have criticised the God of War games and just the series, then even if I had only played 4 bad games this year and I was looking for another one, I would not be able to justify putting God of War 2 on the list. It's on the whole, it's good, it's fun. I'm surprised by how much I've genuinely liked.
Yeah, the last moments of that game are genuinely fantastic. And that opening boss with the Colossus.
Yeah. Yes.
It almost makes up for the terrible sex minigames.
But yeah, like I said, I wouldn't be able to justify putting God of War 2 on my worst list. But God of War 3? Oh!
I fully
definitely.
understand. I fully understand.
And gameplay-wise, it's just more of the same, but the three things that it comes down to are pacing, writing, and the story. The story and the writing are a little bit different, because it's a crap story, but it's written crappily as well. And I understand that they had to have a big opening boss. So you fight Poseidon, which is legitimately quite a cool opening boss. The problem is that in the whole hierarchy of Greek gods, it goes Zeus, then Poseidon. So you spend the rest of the game making your way to Zeus, who you were already about to kill at the end of the second game, and you've just killed the only other god who might have been able to pose some kind of challenge. And then the next god after that is Hades anyway, and he's the only other one that's even in the top 3. So it's unsurprising that you kill Helios and what was it? Another one. There's another one. Hephaestus.
I know you fight Hercules.
Yeah, you kill Helios and Hephaestus in quick time events, and you kill Hera literally in a cutscene with no input. But yeah, that bit's bad. The story.
And you fuck Aphrodite.
Yep. The story is by far and away
and
the worst of any.
And her like girlfriends watch and masturbate.
Oh god, that was one of the most depressing things I've ever done in a game, just because I was imagining a 13-year-old kid who's playing this on his brother's PS3 late at night, thinking that it's the coolest thing ever, and just as the handmaidens are watching, going, "Oh my god, if it's this good just watching," and you're just like, "Oh." But yeah, I don't want to talk for too long about the story because it's just so bad that we could be here for ages, but the best bits. At the end of God of War 2, you're about to kill Zeus, but then Athena jumps in and takes the hit. And then you go back in time and get the Titans, and they launch an attack on Olympus. And in the first 15 minutes, all of the Titans fail because they're useless and garbage and slow, and the gods literally just hit them, and then they fall off the mountain and die. Kratos and Gaia make their way to the top, only for Zeus to literally just charge up a lightning bolt and then throw it at them, and then they both fall down. That's it. That's all he has to do. And then, when you fall down, then Athena shows up, saying, "Hey, you know how I literally just died to save Zeus? I see light where there once was darkness. I'm gonna help you kill Zeus." And not only does she suddenly announce that she's going to help you kill the guy whose life she just literally saved, but she also announces you need to reopen Pandora's box to gain the power to kill a god. Which, A, you've already... I killed a god literally 10 minutes ago. Thanks for noticing. B, if I needed the power to kill a god to kill Zeus, why did you die for him? And C is just... What? But the real C is just you already opened Pandora's box in the first game, and this gets mentioned once by Athena going, "Yeah, but there's something else inside it." So you go through the whole game, then you open the box, and then there's nothing else inside it. and I was watching the credits, and there were all these gameplay designers going by, and all these play testers, and do you know how many writers there were on the game? 1. And to be fair, that one writer who wrote the whole game, not a terrible job for one person. But you should not have a one-person writing team for the conclusion of a trilogy like this. And also just the fact that the game ends with, Kratos, to defeat Zeus, you have to learn to forgive yourself for what you've done. It was just...
And then he smashed his head over and over on a brick.
Oh. Yeah, God of War 3. Gameplay-wise, it's perfectly fine. The graphics were pretty. I can't figure out if the Chronos boss battle is great or terrible, because it's a great set piece and there's some intense music, but all you're doing is running from place to place, fighting little mini squads of enemies, and then doing quick time events. But yeah, it's not bad enough to be the worst game, but definitely the 5th worst game I played this year.
I didn't give an exact order to mine. I just wrote them out in alphabetical order, and that's where I'm going. So I'm just going to go ahead and skip over Chantilly's, because I think we've covered that bullshit.
No, let's talk about it some more.
No.
Fucking Chantilly.
But I am going to talk about Chronicles of Teddy again, because I need to stress that game is fucking horseshit. For one boss, it is such horseshit, and for the rest of it, it is so boring. It's like they decided, okay, we made this cool, quirky, point-and-click game, indie game with sprite graphics and all the vor death. We could do that again, or hear me out. We could hire someone else to make a subpar Zelda clone. Brilliant, give that man a raise. And that's what happened, and it's amazing because the game is absolutely gorgeous, but it is either frustratingly boring or just bullshit upon bullshit. That boss, that ice level boss, that fucking tunneling worm that can lock you into a fucking inescapable hit marathon for like 10 seconds is the camel that broke my back. I'm never going to return to that fucking game. And I did watch the final boss on YouTube, and it was lame. Oh, God.
The camel that broke your back. What were you doing with the camel?
The camel
made it break your back?
The camel jumped on my back and broke it.
That is fair enough. Don't laugh. That's how my dad died.
I've also listed Crush here because even though I'm still fucking playing it, because I do need to stress, because it's come to my attention that I may have accidentally convinced 3 of my friends to also play it. I'm sorry. But I need to stress, you should not play this game because they are legitimately friendly with Yandere Dev, and if you don't know this, Yandere Dev once doxed a handicapped girl who criticized him. So, don't support them. So yeah, fuck Crush. And I'm still fucking playing it, god damn it. Go ahead and go, Danny.
The other 2 games I have in my 5 worst list, they aren't like the worst games I played this year, even necessarily. They're just some of the worst I played, even if they're not terrible. And I kind of skipped over adding ones that were probably worse, just because it might have been talked about on this show, like Chantilly's. I wanted to talk about these. So, one of them would be Not a Hero, which I played a bunch of, and like the gameplay itself was pretty fun, really challenging at times, but fun. The reason it's on this list is because the writing isn't very good. I mean, it doesn't need a story or anything. It doesn't really need the writing, but it's littered with jokes, and the jokes just aren't funny at all. They're just the kind of
Danny,
like bottom of the barrel.
Can I touch your shins?
No.
We're gonna shoot actual people in their actual teeth is a fantastic line.
Yeah, but it's like one of the only ones. I don't know. It's Devolver Games. Sometimes they just get it so right with the kind of like weird, random, somewhat edgy kind of stuff, and other times the games they publish just don't. And this is one of them where it's just jokes don't really land. And also, the main reason I put it on here is because it's racist.
Oh yeah, I'll give you that.
It's pretty racist. Like, really early on. It's just, it is racist.
It's hard to tell if it's being subversive or playing it straight is the difficult part. Because, Bunny Lord's clearly not a good person, and he's doing genuinely evil things, but,
But
at the same time, it doesn't make it clear enough.
And the game doesn't care about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a game trying to say, oh, this is it's not like trying to make a point or anything. All it's trying to do is just make jokes.
Also, they clearly hate the Welsh.
Yeah.
Did that joke land for you, Elmo?
Who doesn't?
So yeah, that's the main reason I had on here, the racism.
Go for it, Elmo.
Okay, my number 4 worst. Again, I gotta try and talk quick, because I have to fit in a brief history of the Binding of Isaac. A series of randomly... Well, it's not really a series. Randomly generated dungeons in a roguelike fashion, a really dark sense of humour, some power-ups you get that are completely useless, but a lot that just literally break the game, where you play as this kid who runs around shooting tears at his enemies. The Binding of Isaac was such a weird but kinda wonderful game. And then they came out with an expansion pack named Binding of Isaac Wrath of the Lamb, which is pretty good. It added alternate floors to every floor that you could go on, added a bunch of new bosses, some new items, I think an extra final floor as well. Pretty good. Then when Edmund Macmillan wanted to put more content in the game, and it literally wouldn't fit, then he knew that they would have to remake it from scratch, so they did it on another engine and released The Binding of Isaac Rebirth, which added 4 new characters, a new floor, because once you get to the 8th floor there's a split and you can go to the cathedral, or you can literally just go to hell. And he added an extra floor after hell. There's now a boss rush if you beat the boss of level 6 in under 20 minutes. He added new challenges. It was a good game, and there's like a mega final boss available if you fulfill some weird optional things along the way. Then for more content, they released The Binding of Isaac Afterbirth, which gave you 2 new characters, an entirely new mode named Greed Mode, where instead of playing the game regularly, there's just one big room filled, and you fight waves of enemies to get coins, and there's a shop that has respawning items. So you fight the enemies, get coins, power up, go down the floor. You're now more powerful, you kill enemies more quickly, get more coins, the enemies get tougher, so on and so on. And it added a new boss for if you beat the boss of floor 8 in under 30 minutes, named Hush.
Get on with it!
I am! It's just one more. Hush is really good because it's this insanely tanky boss. It's the only enemy in the game that has damage scaling, so if you're really powerful it still takes 10 minutes to beat it, and it's all bullet hell. And then the final expansion pack that was released this year is Afterbirth Plus, and that's the 4th worst thing of the year. Because I wanted to go through all the stuff that these things added, just because what Afterbirth Plus adds to the game, it adds a bonus floor, but the gimmick of this bonus floor is that it just randomly takes rooms from other floors, which isn't really that cool. It has a new final boss, which, much like the floor, it's just this weird white thing named Delirium, and it just transforms into other bosses in the game and attacks you as those. And it's a cool idea, and it transforms really fast, but they literally just added 6 new sprites of animation, and then they just went, now just cycle through the old bosses, and that's it. And
fantastic.
Oh, and they added a hard mode for Greed Mode, which it doesn't do anything except it halves the number of coins you get, which doesn't make it more interesting, it just makes it annoying and difficult. And they did and they added 1 new character, and he's literally just Isaac again, except he starts with an item, which it's a kind of interesting item that interacts well with a lot of other items, but that's it. He's just holding a new item, and that's it. They went, new character! Boom! So yeah, for the general failure to add content, and the content that they did add being just recycled old stuff, Afterbirth Plus, it's not terrible, but yeah, 4th worst thing of the year for me.
Now that's some Afterbirths you wouldn't keep.
Yummy.
I'll go ahead and go into my next one. Because it does give me I just realized this gives me a chance to talk about Sakura game again, and I like to amend what I said about them earlier on this podcast, because it's come out, they are predatory assholes. As it turns out, they've been scamming, like, actual Japanese doujin developers who make, like, porn games and sell them on cheap indie sites. And they've been scamming them by promising to get their games on Steam, but they, like, don't tell them all the details, so they're putting them in bad deals where they've basically taken the property and the game and are profiting entirely on it through the fucking Steam card system and stuff. And, like, the devs are just getting screwed out of a lot of money. And it also turns out the few games they actually did make stole art from other better games. Like, I should not be as surprised as I was that Superstar, which is just a magical experience of a game, stole art from fucking, like, Love Plus. But the game of theirs I decided to put on this list was Hellgirls, because it was the first one of their games I played that just left me feeling empty instead of endlessly entertained by the terrible translation. I mean, the only time this game gets remotely funny is one part where the woman, where they meet like a witch, and she's talking about like poop or cum or something, and they just very plainly, flat out say shit, and that's it. Like, it is the most empty fucking match 3 puzzle game I've ever seen. It has these very lazy, like, almost, I'm pretty sure made in custom 3D girl, character models. It's such a nothing game, and it really perplexed me when I found it earlier in this year after playing Superstar and just being like, yes, I want to see more of this terrible developer. And it was the first warning sign for me that, hey, maybe not everything's on the up and up with these guys. Which is why I've decided never to buy one of their games ever again. Because,
sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, just like, I don't want to support actual, genuine evil. Go ahead with your next one, Danny.
Really, the only last game I have to talk about in this section is one I started playing a couple weeks ago. I can't remember if I mentioned it on the least episode or not. Horizon Zero Dawn.
Ah, yes. The white people are now Native Americans game.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever gone so cold on a game so quick. And I say quick despite, like, I probably put maybe at least 15 hours into that game before I just kind of went, I'm done. I don't know how far in the story I got. I feel like I got, like, none in the story. I don't know. It just... It wasn't even a bad game. It was just... It got so boring so quickly. Like, I played so much, you're like, oh, it's gonna be fun when everything really opens up. I finally get out into the all the corners of the world. Well, I didn't get to all of them, but I got from one end of the open world to the other, and I was just thought, oh, this didn't really get any more fun. It just kind of got dull, especially once I started getting to boss fights, which are just, you kind of just have to like wail on enemies for a while, and you have all these tools and traps at your disposal, but the best option is to just grenade all the time. And I don't know, it got really boring quickly. There were so many other games this year that did what it was trying to do and did it better.
Of course, it's the white guys who make the robot dinosaurs boring.
I know, right? And, like, the robot dinosaurs have cool designs. And
also, they did the racism.
Yeah.
And apparently the writer for the game has been doing that same racism his entire career. Which explains so much.
Yeah, all the white people in dreads and using, obviously, native inspired language and dress is not good. And I mean, there's cool stuff in that game. I think the kinds of religions that emerge from this world are interesting. The big one in the tribe that your main character, I don't remember her name, is from. I don't like any of the names in the game. They're just really weird. Like, they don't feel like they come from anything. They just feel like syllables, you know?
So it's sort of like listening to a Twi'lek in Knights of the Old Republic talk, and they just cycle the same audio over and over no matter what he's saying. So it's like, oh, chupa chuka, oh, ah, chupa chuka, oh, like that. That is 10 fucking hours of your experience in Knights of the Old Republic, people.
Because they're short names, and it's like their names kind of like just Deck or Tech, something like that. They're short. They don't seem to come from anything, and I don't know. It's a really minor nitpick, whatever. But I do really like the religion of the native, like the people you play as, which is it's a matriarchal religion where like the high priests are all women, and they worship the All Mother, and that's kind of generic sounding stuff to just kind of be different and feminist in 2017. And I mean, like, with one of the developers on stage at PSX patting himself on the back, we made a women protagonist, we did a good job. But
hire more women guards.
Yeah, but the religion itself is pretty cool, because there's this just giant, like, huge fossilized, like, at this point kind of fossilized machine from sometime, like, from back when all the wars happened. I didn't get far enough to find out what exactly happened, and it's just it had been defeated, and it was collapsed on this big mountain, and the mountain is the All Mother that they worship. It's like a worshiping Mother Nature type thing. The lore in the religion is that the All Mother defeated this devil, the machine, and that's why they worship the All Mother. And not having a mother is like a sin in that religion. Like, the main character kind of just appeared one day in the mountain without being born, so to speak, which I'm guessing she came out of like some kind of cryo sleep or something, because it's implied her mother was like from when people were still modern and before the machine apocalypse. So she must have been in some kind of cryo sleep, but she just kind of appeared one day inside this facility, this ruined facility, and so she's like outcast and cursed because she doesn't have a mother. So like, she's a sin, and like that's cool. Bit there's some cool world building in there, and a lot of the writing and text things I picked up were like explicitly socialist, like talking about. Because there's text logs from before the apocalypse on how everything just went to hell, and there's stuff about like corporations muscling into politics and taking money away from welfare systems to funnel into like tax breaks and stuff. Like there's even like a parody Alex Jones that shows up yelling about the communists and stuff like that, and that's cool. I like that. It's interesting and relevant, but it's just not most like the actual story is just it's so boring. A lot of the native stuff is so like forced, not done well, and just cringy. Aside from being racist, the gameplay is just it's boring, like Assassin's Creed 3 gameplay. You have all these tools at your disposal, but you don't have any reason to use 90% of them. The combat's clunky, and the world just gets kind of boring quickly because it's empty. It just feels really empty. I can think of 2 big games that came out this year that do different aspects of that game much better. Breath of the Wild and Nier. Like, you want the post-apocalyptic sci-fi aspect with cool combat, stuff about robots, you got Nier, which I'm going to be talking about later. Like, you know I'm going to be talking about that game later, or whatever. And then Zelda, which I hadn't mentioned on anything else, which is just really, really fun.
And also includes robots.
Yeah, you do.
And
you
racism.
And, better combat on both fronts. And, I don't know, it's just like, this was... I don't get how this was one of the big games this year.
Because Star Trek has poisoned the entire generation's brain.
It's like, I don't get how this is on Game of the Year list, why this was such a big deal. Like, it feels more like we had to have a big Western game.
I think it's because I noticed there's a lot of, really old Star Trek fans who like this because they think it's, classic, interesting sci-fi. And that just tells me I should probably not watch the original Star Trek series.
It's just like there's better better sci-fi this year. And I don't know. I don't get why this was such a big deal. I don't know. It was a disappointment. It goes cold so quickly once you realize, oh, this is all there is to it.
All right. We really do need to keep moving on. Let's see. Do you have any left, Elmo?
Me?
Yeah.
I got 3.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
This one I can be really quick on, at least.
Yeah, we should probably rush through these.
Some people really like Pac-Man Championship Edition DX, but I can see why, because it's great, it's fantastic, and everyone should play it. Literally, if you're a Pac-Man fan, if you're not a Pac-Man fan, it's great. It's
the Pac World War II.
It's legitimately just so fantastic. I'm not into traditional Pac-Man Waka 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 gameplay, but it's really good. It finds a whole bunch of new, fun arcade ways of playing it. Pac-Man Championship Edition 2, third worst game of the year. It's not... It's the kind of game where they had to make a sequel, and they had to make several big changes, because otherwise they would just be re-releasing Championship Edition 1 again. But, they didn't know if any of the changes were good. So it's just a really weird, confusing game where you can bump into ghosts now, and they don't kill you, but if you bump into them 3 times, they bounce and then get really angry, and then kill you. And also,
what?
One of the best things about Championship Edition DX is just the layout of going through a bunch of pack dots. And if you went next to a ghost, the ghost would start chasing you. And if you got into if you went past 20 ghosts, they would form a little ghost train. So when you got a power pellet, you could just eat that entire train at once, and it felt great. It's just amazing Pac-Man feeling. In Championship Edition 2, they seem to have heads. If there's a ghost train, you can only attack it head on, and they move faster than you. So they're flying around the maze at super speed, and you have to try and somehow get... And they have these little lines that designate the paths that the ghost trains are supposed to be allowed to take, but they're lies. They can just go anywhere they want. So you can be like, finally, I've got it, and then it'll just turn left when it's not supposed to turn left. And
I'm gonna be honest, the minute I heard you can bump in the ghost, I felt old gamer rage in me that I have not felt since I discovered that modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournaments span Pot of Greed and Monster Reborn. Do not get me fucking started.
I think Raigeki is the fairest card of all. But, and the only other thing about Championship Edition 2 is that it added an adventure mode. It's literally just levels of Pac-Man Championship Edition. But now you have tasks, you have to... And it's one of those horrible ones where you're like, this task is easy. You gotta eat 10 ghosts, you gotta gather this much fruit, get this many points. And there's 12 levels and 5 worlds. And it's one of those games where you get through the first 4 worlds and it says, yeah, sure, whatever, it's fine. Just, there's 3 possible medals for every level, but if you've just got 1... that's fine, that's enough to move on to the next one. And then right before you get to the end, it's like, hey, we have a final boss and you need to get 3 stars on every single level if you want to see it. Every single level. Including the ones at the end that are earn 6 million points in 5 minutes. Which is Which is possible, but you'll find that it gets really annoying when the heads of those ghost trains just fly away when you... It's not good. It's one of the few Steam games that I've actually written a negative review of, because it was just not good.
For my next one, I'll be quick, because it's another hidden object game, and the last one, I promise. It's called Hope Lake, and unlike Black Rainbow, you can mistake it for being a good hidden object game until halfway through when you realize, oh, this is the entire game. It goes on for like twice as long as it needed to, and it's weird because it has a ticking timer plot going on with, like, you're chasing down a man who might be trying to kill a woman who's, like, trapped on a boat in a lake, and you gotta find a way to help her. But almost all you do throughout the game is do hidden object mini games and do the easiest point and click puzzles ever made, and it's just mind-numbing. You're still doing these during the really tense moment where you're supposed to be, like, chasing down the criminal so he doesn't kill the lady, and then at the end of the game the lady cop shoots the guy in the arm and he's grazed a little and hurt, so then he, like, falls to the ground like, ow, that hurt. And she walks the lady she saved away and doesn't, like, put him in handcuffs, and I just wanted to scream by then. It's not a good game. It's pretty, but no. And go ahead and go with your last one, Elmo.
I've got two.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
this
the
is
next
never
one. The next one.
Okay, since I complain about games so much, my number 2 worst game is really just a diss against myself. Just before, I have a quick game that we can play, because since by the time this goes up, the Steam Christmas sale will be on, and whichever one of you wins this, I'll buy you a Steam Christmas sale game that you want. Okay, I've written down, because this is relevant to the game I've picked, I've written down a list of the top 50 most played games I have on Steam. So, don't look at Steam, and just take it in turns to name a game that you think is in the top 50 ones that I've most played. Since I've been doing the podcast longer with you, Dark, then Danny, you get to go first.
Stardew Valley.
Okay, so Dark, you win a game. I figured that would either end immediately or go on for a while. So my point is that I can tell you my 8 most played games, because again, I swear this is relevant. This isn't just me talking about games I've played. Binding of Isaac Rebirth, Binding of Isaac, Roller Coaster Tycoon,
Not again.
Poker Night, Super Meat Boy, Electronic Super Joy, Outlast, Alan Wake. The number 9th game, my 9th most played game of all time on Steam, more than Life is Strange and Lisa and every Telltale Games thing, and VVVVV and Braid and Gunpoint and all these other games I love. It's named Free Cell Quest. Free Cell Quest is the second worst game I've played this year, because sometimes I just don't want to play something that makes me think too much. Maybe I've just finished a massive RPG. I just want a dumb game that I can breeze through without really thinking about. And
This is why we have phones, Elmo.
Yep. And I saw Free Cell Quest on sale once for like 75% off, and I thought, I actually do very occasionally still play Free Cell on my computer. I might as well get a Steam version of it. So I got Free Cell Quest, and to be fair, it's the best damn Free Cell game you could ever play. It has these different nations, and they all have cities. There's not much to the game. It's literally just go here, play Free Cell, go here, play Free Cell. And every time you win, you get a card, and once you get a full deck, you unlock another free cell, and you have a magic meter, and you can cast spells like bring this card to the top of the deck, shuffle all of the black cards on the deck, push all of the kings right to the bottom. It's genuinely a really great Free Cell game. It has achievements. I played for about 45 minutes the first time I played, and I beat one nation of Free Cell. There's about 35 nations in the game, and the first nation is about, 20 levels. Some of the later ones are 45. And by that time you're playing with 8 different decks of cards. and they're all mashed into 6 columns, and I kept playing because I had started it, so I wanted to finish it. So I've played Free Cell Quest for about 35 hours of my life that I'm never getting back, just because I got 5 hours in and thought, I'm not having a good time anymore. But I've started it. I know I can do this, and I am getting achievements. So yeah, second worst game of the year. Really, this is just the second worst gamer award of the year, and it's me. And but yeah, the fact that it's my 9th most played game of all time. Free Cell Quest.
I'm really sad I have to put this one on my list, but Syberia 3.
Oh.
I can't avoid it. It's like, I did enjoy it. I really enjoyed the story. I think it's one of the darkest, most interesting things the writer of the game has ever done, but the game itself is such a fucking broken disaster that I don't know how it got released. It got delayed countless times, and this is what we got. They still don't have movement right, which is astounding. They tried copying like Telltale or something, and it was such a bad idea, and it didn't work. And then of course there's all of the crashing. There is so much fucking crashing, or sometimes just freezing. Like, there are times, if there's enough characters in an area, that and when you do an event, instead of transitioning on to going back into game mode, it just freezes on that one event. And this isn't like cutscenes, this is with in-game graphics. And you have to restart the whole thing, lower the graphics options, then turn it back on, and do it all over again so it will continue to play properly. It is just... Oh, and of course there's the voice acting, which, to be bad by Microid standards, is a fucking accomplishment. Holy shit. Other than the returning Kate and one spoilery character, there's only one good actor in this game who does a few roles, and that is the voice of Dr. Eggman. That guy is fucking everywhere, and he deserves a raise because he is constantly the only good actor in, like, terribly dubbed things he's always in. Give that man more money. But yeah, I can't recommend Syberia 3 unless you really want to see more Syberia, and I know that's not many people, so... How did they fuck it up that bad? Go ahead and play us off, Elmo, for this section.
Okay, I want to rush through it, but I also know there's no fucking way I can rush through this one.
I'll make you rush.
This is one of the few games I genuinely hate. Even stuff like Chantilly's, maybe I hate it, but not really. I can't really fathom up that much hate for it.
It's too cute to hate.
Just Cause, the PS2 version I played, I hate that. Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2 on the DS, it's like Lemmings, but worse. And what was the other one? There's one that I really just fucking despise. Oh, the Spider-Man movie game, the first one. I can't believe anyone thinks that's good, and I'm really sorry. Because...
Well, it's not that good, but come on.
It's one of those games where at its best it's utterly mediocre, and at its worst it's just fucking awful. The bomb level. The bomb level successfully made me want to die in a bomb. So there
okay, fair.
So anyway, this is... I feel like I should like Telltale Games stuff a lot more than I do. They've done some good stuff, and their whole thing is, we make games where you make choices and they affect the outcome of the game and how it's played, and it's really impressive. And then you actually play them, and you're like, no, you've just lied to me. Everything you said was a lie, and everything ended up exactly the same, except Puzzle Agent. They did Puzzle Agent, and that was great. And you know, I like some of their stuff here and there, and none of their stuff has been bad enough to really warrant being on the list, except this is the year I played The Walking Dead Season 2.
Oh,
Fuck
no.
me. Oh, God, this is so... I don't know how you can make a game that's this badly written and this badly paced and has this bad of a story.
Elmo, you've literally set the internet on fire.
It's so fucking bad. Like, I'm tempted to say, like, oh, spoiler warning, because obviously my main criticism is the story in this story game. At the beginning of the game, you play as Clementine from the first season, and right at the beginning, you meet up with this group in a house, and they're the main characters for the season. You've got Luke, who's handsome and friendly and nice, and I think he has a bit of an Irish accent, which is great. You've got AJ and Rebecca. Alvin and Rebecca. Alvin is this chubby black guy who's really friendly, and his wife is pregnant, but is it his? Who knows? Ooh, who cares? Nobody. You've got, I think, Carlos and Sarah. Carlos is the leader of the group. He's also a doctor, so he's quite useful to have around. His daughter Sarah is a little bit sheltered. She's nice, but a bit sheltered. And the other two are like Pete and Nick. Nick is the young, hot-headed one, but his heart is in the right place, and Pete is his uncle, who's more, like, Nick, calm down, rah, rah, rah. So there's 7 characters who you meet right at the beginning. No matter what you do, every single one of them dies.
Yeah, sorry. It just cut off right when you said every single character and then cut.
Every single one of those characters dies. Every single
Fantastic.
one. And that's not... I don't consider that really even a spoiler, because if that makes you think, oh, now I don't want to play the game, well, good. Good. I have fucking done you the biggest favour. It's such a... The biggest fear with The Walking Dead is that it's going to end up being written by people who just don't know the difference between good drama and then zombies showed up and killed someone. And you can only have zombies show up and kill someone like 2 times before people just stop caring. And that's just ultimately the biggest problem with this game. You don't care about anything that happens to these stupid people. In episode 2, I'm not going to go through all the examples I have. In episode 2, there's a character named, like I said, that character Nick. He does something stupid and he shoots someone because he thinks this person is sticking you up. And then later you meet the group that this guy comes from. And they get angry at Nick, and you can either tell them, no, don't shoot Nick, he's nice, or you can say nothing. And one way Nick dies, one way he doesn't. And this is supposed to be like the bread and butter of what makes The Walking Dead good. Like, this character lives or dies based on your decision. But the people who write these games are shit and don't put effort into anything. So they couldn't come up with 2 different storylines where Nick is alive and Nick is dead. So if you save Nick, in the next episode he has 2 lines of dialogue and then he fucking dies off screen. Just because. Why? So it's just like, why the fuck did I even bother? Why does anyone bother doing anything in this game? I don't want to play The Walking Dead Season 3. I have no intention to. The Walking Dead 1 was okay, but Jesus Christ, The Walking Dead Season 2, absolutely the worst thing I played this year. One of the worst games I've ever played.
The writing is on the wall for Telltale. It's been coming out lately that, like, they're an incredibly overworked studio and they've been relying on really outdated technology they can't keep around anymore, so...
It just bugged me that, like, their whole gimmick
enjoy them while they last.
It just bugs me that their whole entire gimmick is we're Telltale Games and we do amazingly written stories and they're catered to your choices. And it's just, like, The Walking Dead Season 2, no, and no. It fails at everything it tries to do, and none of the choices matter.
Season 3 is even worse.
I did read that one of the few things that people found impressive about Season 2 is that it has like 6 different endings, because you can end up with one character or another character, or in a settlement with another character, or on your own, or not at the settlement but with your friend. And then at the beginning of Season 3 it's like, hey, 2-minute cutscene, whoever you were with dies, and now you're just hanging out.
You end up in the same place
hanging out with my family, having ourselves a party.
I call it Telltale voting, because it's just...
On to the next segment.
Woo!
Warm rain beats down in waves on pavement. The wind sings its prose while I'm waiting for the cold to reach my bone.
Okay, now that we've gone over the bad games, let's do this one real quick, since I know we're going to want to gush about our favorite games, and just list out some of our some games we think deserve attention that we found that were either really weird or really interesting or just really good but didn't quite make the cut. I went ahead and picked 12. What about, I know Danny picked 5, so what about Elmo?
I picked 10, but I can run through them. Like, I can literally just say the name of the jokey award that I gave it and then the game.
We'll go ahead and go in a circle. Just everyone gets their entire list out. Keep it short and simple. I'll go ahead and give you all an example with me going over my 12. Okay, I started the year playing Alpha Protocol. I'm pretty sure that's an Obsidian game. I need to double check that, but it is kind of a mess, like a lot of people say, but people are exaggerating greatly, because I'm playing Knights of the Old Republic right now, and let me tell you, that's a broken game. But yeah, Alpha Protocol, very good, has some surprisingly still very topical political commentary. It is basically just all about casting shade on the Bush administration, and everything it says still rings true to this day. It has some really fun gameplay once you figure out that when you max out stealth, you've become a god. And I just love every single character in it. It is a fantastic RPG action hybrid, and it's really like nothing else in the Western RPG scene. You do need to check it out. I also put down here a Trip to Yugoslavia Director's Cut, which we covered before, and I want to bring that one back up again because there's an FMV resurgence coming, but this is the first one I've seen that takes the aesthetics of video and really uses it in neat and interesting ways, even in a gameplay way, which I thought was really neat and made up for like how amateur production it is. And I would like to see more FMV games try stuff like that. And it's like $1. There's no reason not to try it if your computer can run it. There's I'm going to bring out the beginner's guide, which just barely is like number 6. I'm serious. It just barely eked out of the top 5. That game is beautiful, and just go listen to our podcast about it. God. Grand Pigeon's Duty, which is far better of a game than it has any right to be, and is about bird communism, so just know that you will be frustrated, but it is worth it. I put down Lisa because, of course, I put down Lisa. Go listen to our last podcast. Massive Chalice by Double Fine, which is a very fun strategy game that takes place over hundreds of years, where you have to basically raise entire generations of heroes to fight off a coming taint, and so much random stuff can happen to just ruin your run, and you have to deal with it. It's really fun, really challenging, and has that good old Double Fine wit. Mitsurugi Kamui Hikaye, which I don't think I've talked about enough. Dojin made action title. It's very simple, just basic fight the enemies in an arena, but it's very much like a Platinum Games battle system. And it's fun to just mess with the mechanics and see what new things you can do with stuff you unlock. There's Mutiny from Lupe Soft, which kids don't play that one. But I always want to say go get the new Lupe Soft game whenever it comes out, because they really do deserve the attention, and the English visual novel scene needs more success stories. There's Pizza Express, which one day we will talk about on the show, I swear. Really cute sprite-based pizza management sim that has really funny dialogue, really fun characters, branching stories, shockingly, and really addicting, entertaining, and just like difficult pizza making game at the core of it. There's the silver case, which I talked about with Tom on a rainy day chat, where we basically just gushed about weird, how fucking weird Suda51 is, and compared it to David Lynch films. And like, that is a visual novel that legitimately pushes the genre in ways I haven't seen before, and deserves to be remembered as one of Suda51's best games ever, even though I know like nobody's gonna play it.
I'll play
It finally got a translation. The remake is gorgeous. There is no excuse not to pick it up if you see it on sale. Stories Untold, go see our episode, but that is a really inventive, brilliant little game. And This Is the Police, which is a game I wanted to play more of, but unfortunately Alpha Protocol happened. And I am considering doing an episode on it. It is a sim game about a corrupt police chief who's about to retire, and you have to get him through his last 250 days of work while his life is slowly falling apart around him. And and he's that police chief is played by the voice of Duke Nukem himself, and he just knocks the role out of the park. The game is filled with class, this really cool minimalist style, and you can even buy like old classic and jazz records and play them while you go through the main game. Highly recommended, and that is my list of the games that didn't quite make my list but really deserve mention. Go on, Danny can go next.
I'll run through mine pretty quickly. I had at 4 and 5 on my list. I had from ranking from sort of least. My interesting list was I wanted to put some of the best games I played that didn't make my top 5 on the best list. So I had Yakuza 5 and Yakuza Kiwami at 4 and 5 respectively.
Nice.
All the games on the list are ones that I don't think get enough attention. Yakuza games especially, because they're just... I feel like Zero finally put it on the map this year. And the only reason that's not on my best of list is because I didn't actually play it. I watched it. Still hoping to get it and play it sometime. But these games are just so different, and...
what if Shenmue was good?
Yeah.
Fight me!
They're just hilarious games, and they're so funny and fun as well. The combat in the later games, like with 4, they started adding different characters to get different kind of combat styles, and then 5 did that by adding even more characters, and then a character who you play, it's just an idol simulator. All she does dance battles and has rhythm games, and you just play chapters of Yakuza 5 completely separated from the rest of the story, just being an idol, an up-and-coming idol. And it ends up linking in really well with the rest of the story. You go with Yakuza 0, and which takes it back and which scales it back to 2 characters. But each character has 4 different styles of fighting they can do, and then Yakuza Kiwami scales it back to only 1, but you still have the 4 styles from 0, and it adds just so much. It adds so much to those games to have that kind of variety in the combat, because you do a lot of combat, and almost every side quest just essentially boils down to you go somewhere and you have to beat someone up. So there's not variety in that aspect, but just the types of what you can do in the combat is there's just so much, and it's so funny and brutal. And
what else?
At 3 I had Tekken 7, just because that one has been getting a bit of attention, but that game's just really fun. As someone who isn't into fighting games, I love Tekken 7, so it's really interesting for me in its presentation.
Namco has always been really good at making accessible 3D fighting games as when they're not like destroying the Soul Calibur canon and making me angry and screeching at the ceiling.
Get excited for 6.
I'm not.
I am.
Trust me, it's gonna suck, it's gonna be rushed, and half the game will be missing. This happened twice already. In a row.
I hope it's fun. Like Soul Calibur 4 for me was fun. I hope it's fun like that. I already talked about Tekken 7, so I don't have much more to say. It's just that's an interesting fighting game, and what it's doing with its DLC is also just it's fun. I like that. Noctis wasn't my first choice. I wanted Kiryu, but I'll see how he plays. I'll see how fun he is, because I tried a bit of Geese. I haven't played much Tekken in a bit, but Geese Howard is fun, and I didn't expect to like a character like Geese Howard, but he's fun in Tekken. So number 2, I had a game I also talked about last time, Danganronpa V3.
Enough said.
Yeah, I still can't talk about it because spoilers. And
it's the Last Jedi of Danganronpa.
I haven't seen Last Jedi, so I don't know that. But I'm still thinking about it because that was a really good game and good ending, and still seeing longtime fans be just super salty over it. For me, validates the entire ending that they hate.
Petition to make Danganronpa V3 sucks bad.
Petition to remove Danganronpa V3 from canon.
It's
that
not in canon.
It is canon, but like
Let's not spoil it.
Fans getting angry about the ending completely just validates the ending, because the ending is about...
Who was the broom kid?
It's about people who care too much about this piece of media and care too much what happens and treat it like it's real. That's what the ending is criticizing. People who care too much about it to that point. The fans are responding to it in a way that completely validates that, because they're just going like, screw this ending, I hate it, it's the worst Danganronpa, because it doesn't validate treating the rest of the series as super, super important. For me, that's the same kind of thing like Metal Gear Solid 2. Like, that's like how Metal Gear Solid 2, Snake just goes like, don't worry about what happened. That's not the point. The point is, like, Snake just straight up says at the end of Metal Gear Solid 2, don't worry about anything that just happened. It's about how you felt. It's about what your thoughts were, what your feelings were. It's about passing that on. And
one decade later,
you go online and it's was it a VR simulation? Here's the evidence. Here's our theory. And it's like that didn't matter. Like, the plot hole, it's full of plot holes. Of course it is, because that doesn't matter. Who cares if it makes sense? It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to follow that kind of logic, because that's not what it's about. And I love that. I think Danganronpa V3 doesn't do the same thing, but that kind of appealing to fans and its appeal being validated by fans' rejection of it, I think it's the same between those two, and I love it.
And what would you put as number 1?
Number 1 is a game I've been thinking about ever since I played it, and just itching to play it again, but I can't, and I think that just makes it all the more interesting. I talked about it on here a few months ago, and that is You Beat Q-Bell. Japanese arcade rhythm game that I played at Otakon this year. Like the full set. I went looking. It has apps on like iPad and phones you can get on like Japanese Google Play and Apple Store, but the experience on that just isn't the same. Like, just having the full cabinet and like you're getting the full body movement. You're having to like reach out your hands on this big pad, this controller, I guess you could say, it's a different experience, and it's so fun. And I hate that arcades aren't what they are in Japan. I hate that we don't have the kind of like foot traffic culture, and it doesn't work here. I hate that we can't make arcades work here like they can in Japan. And I mean, Super Bunny Hop, he like maybe a year or two ago, he went to Japan and posted his review of Japanese arcades, and in that he actually provides a good brief explanation for why arcades can flourish there but not here. It just bums me out that I can't go and play that without literally spending thousands of dollars to just buy a full cabinet and ship it here. I want to play that again. It's so fun. And the music choices, there's so much music to choose from. I wish I could have like had time to go through it all, but I had so much limited time. I just wanted to do the same songs over and over to get good at them. And
we need to move on real quick.
I'm gushing about this game because it's just a super fun rhythm game, and I love that kind of full body rhythm game experience. And if I get the chance again, I'm gonna play the hell out of that game.
Okay, I already mentioned my Narcoleptic Haiku Award for terrible pacing, God of War 2. The Irate Gamer Award for I'm sorry, but I literally forgot that you ever existed goes to New Super Mario Bros. Wii, which I played, then 3 months later I thought, I need to play a game I haven't played before. What about New Super Mario Bros. Wii? And I got halfway through the first world before I was like, wait a second. It's not bad, it's just so incredibly forgettable. The Discord Award for oh my fucking god, would you stop downloading updates goes to Shrouded Insanity. Second game we ever reviewed. Every time I open Steam, it's downloading something new. It's crazy. It downloaded a boss rush mode recently, but most times in boss rushes, you fight a boss one after another. The boss rush in Shrouded Insanity is literally every single boss at once. I haven't beaten it, and I'm not going to try to. The Handmaid's Tale Award for I wasn't expecting this to be politically relevant in 2017, but here we are, goes to Manhunt. At the beginning of one of the levels of Manhunt, one of the groups you're fighting against is the Skins, and the guy filming you has this to say at the beginning of the level. These skins are boring me, dumbass white supremacist bastards, always blaming everyone else for their inadequacies. Butcher them, Cash, cut them up, beat them down, and choke the fucking life out of them. I don't know why, but something about that just makes me think of 2017. The Dead Fanfiction Award for the game that's never going to be finished. I put this up because it's the Reject Demon Toko, which was I think the 4th game we ever reviewed, and now they've just patched in a load of voice acting and they say they're going to redo it. But yeah, it's been like 2 years and the closest we've got is still Chapter 0. I don't think it's coming.
Yeah, right now they're finishing up Dizzy Hearts and working on some other stuff.
Don't release Chapter 0 of one game and then release 5 other games. Well, you know you can.
I don't know. I know Tao follows us.
Hi Tao.
Hi Tao. I don't know if you listen to this, but whatever you've got going on, if you can, focus on making less games at once, please.
Come to think of it, focus on putting less threads of storyline into the game, so the threads that you do have are really, really good. Because
and it's like,
okay,
let's keep it going.
The Downton Abbey Award for the most accurate representation of Britain goes to Hector Badge of Carnage. If you've played Hector, you know why, and if you haven't played Hector, you should play Hector and then know why. It's very crass, very rude, and very British. This was also going to be a Discord award, but then I thought of a better name for it. So, the Communications Day 2017 award for the absolute worst use of memes goes to Clockwork Tales of Glass and Ink, a really good point-and-click / puzzle game that I did enjoy, but I did mention that in the bar at the beginning of the game, if you talk to a girl who's petting a cat, she goes, "Soft kitty, warm kitty, little ball of fur." That's not really a meme, but it's stupid and not funny. So, to me, that's a meme. And I guess speaking of the Big Bang Theory, the Game of Thrones award for best use of incest has to go to young Sheldon. No explanation really needed there. So, the PewDiePie award for the most entertaining train wreck of the year. I came up with this name before I came up with something to give it to, so I was gonna just give it to PewDiePie. But then I remembered that the Assassin's Creed film came out pretty early this year, so just it's like the Butterfly Effect had a baby with The Watch, which you probably haven't seen, but oh my god, it's so, the Ricky Gervais award for "Would you just fucking fuck off already?" I was going to give this one to Volcanic Fab, but we've already talked about Chantilly's, so then I was going to give it to Loot Boxes, but that was a little bit too serious, so I'm just going to give it to Notch. Like, have you seen his Twitter? Jesus.
Now you have to give it to Jonathan Blow, too.
What did he do?
Yeah.
I haven't...
He is notching.
He's back up to his bullshit.
I like how notch is a verb now.
He is in the process of notching.
Oh, no.
Soon you'll have a room full of candy and it'll all go bad and you'll be sad because
he's already gone onto some biological essentialism shit, so it's only a matter of time before he starts talking about
the room of man pee jars.
The genetically superior races.
Anti-fat crashed
we're
that train.
Right now.
One more, just because I bought a copy of Great Expectations like 10 years ago, and I haven't read it because why would I? It's really long and boring. So the Great Expectations award for I know I bought you 10 years ago, but I swear I'm going to get round to you soon, I promise, goes to Okami, Zelda Spirit Tracks, 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, Grandia, God Hand, Kingdom Hearts, Psychonauts, Star Fox Adventures, and Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg. There are like 100 games I could have picked.
We're gonna have a talk in private, sir.
A lot of those, a lot of the ones on the list are hitting kind of close to home to me.
I'm sorry, but I will get round. And that's it for me.
Hey, I just bought Okami HD. I have to get to it when it gets here.
You're the dog and get pets. Okay, let's just go ahead and end this train wreck of a podcast with our games of the year. I mean, that we played this year.
You old amorotic pinhead, act like the thing is not dead and didn't run into a brick wall at full tilt already. Let me help you fill the gap in memory. Living in the waste wasn't to your taste, but soon you will gaze true straight in the face. All rivers run eventually to the sea. At this stage it's evident there will be no happy end. Suck it up, princess, no one cares for your tears. It's over and I've no damns to give for second thoughts that you're stuck with, looking for loopholes and wondering what if.
Alright, we each picked a top 5. We could pick an order or no order. I didn't really specify, and I did not pick an order.
I put mine in order.
Yep, me too.
La-di-da! Well, anyways, I figured to make this go quick, we each just go one at a time, like the bad games list, but since we have an even number, it'll actually go correctly. Okay, I'll start us off. I'm just going to pick from random from my list. First off, I want to mention Little Red Lie, which I mentioned before on this podcast, but goddamn Will O'Neill can write a video game. Little Red Lie was made by Will O'Neill, who is known for making Actual Sunlight, which is one of the most depressing games ever made, and it is great. And Little Red Lie, unlike Actual Sunlight, which was based on Will O'Neill's actual life, is a completely fictional game, or at least that's what he says, because boy oh boy, does this just feel like an entire encapsulation of 2017. You play as two different characters. A woman who's living at home with her parents because her industry crashed and she's currently doesn't have steady employment, and a man, a conservative asshole who's basically just Donald Trump, who mixed with Rush Limbaugh, who's like peddles crappy hate the poor stuff to people, and is like legitimately terrible. But Will O'Neill actually has to insert himself in the game just to tell everyone play it. No, I know what every piece of media you've ever seen tells you about the tortured rich white guy, but no, he is not complex, interesting, or in depth. He is a ignorant jackass who is going to kill everyone, and he actually does kill a man in the game. And it is just this single most depressing, shockingly realistic example of just how terrible the world is right now in developed cities, by just showing the sheer impact of economic inequality and how everyone reacts to it in different destructive ways. And just how the rich are going to eat us all because they literally don't know these problems exist and are so ignorant by the way they were raised that they can never escape their awful viewpoints. A+. Danny?
At my number 5, I don't have much to say on it. Just like I didn't have much to say on it the first time, Mario Odyssey. It's a solid like Super Mario 64.
Hey, I'm not sitting here.
I feel like we didn't really get a proper Mario 64 successor. This feels like that, without just being Mario 64 again. Actually, taking it to new places and just adding a lot of new fun stuff to the Mario formula, which is a really solid, standing the test of time formula. And it made me. I was never like a huge Mario fan. Like they kind of passed me over, and I just kind of shrugged like, eh. But this one was just really fun. Just really solid, all ages game, and I think Mario Odyssey is right now more so than Breath of the Wild. I think it's the flagship Switch title. That game's gonna stand for a while.
Okay, Elmo?
I know it's supposed to be rushing and all, but I had money on us already being like 2.5 hours in by the time we got to good, so I think we're going way ahead of schedule here. When I was writing my best and worst lists, I don't know if I did it intentionally or if it just happened with a few of them and I tried to do it with the others, but there seemed to be some kind of parallels between what made the good games good and the bad games bad and the kind of genres they were in. And I guess a good way to illustrate that is that my 5th worst game of the year is God of War 3, and my 5th best game of the year, I accept that it has a lot of flaws, but I still love it, is Dante's Inferno. Even though it is just a God of War ripoff, it's really good. And even though it has one of the biggest same flaws...
You still haven't played Psychonauts, but you played Dante's Inferno.
Yep. Twice. Fight me.
We're gonna have a talk after this.
Even though it actually has one of the same flaws that God of War 3 has, in that the pacing can get kind of slow, and after a big opening it kind of stops. Because in Dante's Inferno, you get stabbed in the back, and then Death shows up to claim your soul. So then you pull the knife out of your neck, you fight Death, steal his scythe, and kill him. Then you go to Hell, where you fight... you get to the lust area first, which means you fight this giant 100-foot tall Cleopatra who has weird spider babies coming out of her nipples. It's so crazy and disgusting and amazing.
I know
then-
I didn't pay much attention in my Western literature class, but this sounds exactly like what I remember.
Yeah. And
So,
oh, and then
Fan
you
fiction of a fan fiction.
good on them
then
for
you-
remaining true to the adaptation.
fight Cerberus to get into Wrath, and you end up just fighting this multi-headed dog.
Wait,
that ends up-
Cerberus?
Yep, and it ends up eating you, and then you blow up its head from the inside.
Doesn't that game have a Christian theme to it?
Yeah,
Why is Cerberus there?
Hades
know.
is in the Bible.
yeah. Jesus was saying, "Hey, these coconuts are pretty tasty."
I am
That's the worst thing I've ever said.
70% sure the Bible mentions Hades at some point.
Yeah.
And also in the Bible, Richard Nixon.
Yep.
Yeah, even though it suffers from the same kind of, like, after you fight Cerberus, the game, there are still highlights, but they're kind of scattered few and far between. Then, in God of War 3, it's like you know that there's not going to be that many highlights, because you just killed Poseidon, and you've been doing God of War 3, you've been playing God of War for so long, and you know what's going to happen, you know what's going to go. Just the fact that Dante's Inferno was a surprise, and anything could have happened in there, because it wasn't Greek mythology, I was about to say Christian mythology, and then I thought, I can come up with a better way of saying that, definitely.
It was
Based on-
mythology.
In quotations.
It was a very original game, it was a very fun game, it was basically like God of War, except good.
Okay, back to me. I went ahead and picked out Chroma Squad, which I finally got around to this year, and I am so glad I did. It is a strategy game where you manage a Sentai show studio and air a show, which are filmed via the battle portions. But the later twist is that everything is actually real, and actual monsters have been manipulating you to create devices that allow them to put monsters on Earth. And the game even has 3 different branching story paths, with like a 6th ranger, a character based off in a more obscure tokusatsu show. Oh, and one where almost the entire team gets captured and you get to solo for a long time as Kamen Rider. Which, by the way, is fucking awesome. You get a fucking motorcycle and can spin it around real fast and kick into hordes of enemies, and it is just the best fucking thing. It is such a happy, entertaining, fiery game with like all these cool monsters and battles, a lot of challenge, fun cinematic elements. It just gets the balance perfect, and also you get to beat up the owner of Saban Entertainment, which is A+. They were actually sued by the man in charge of Saban.
Of course they were.
Because he thought they were ripping off Power Rangers.
Of course he did.
So they had to put inspired by Power Rangers at like the bottom of their Steam splash art. But the thing they did, it's also in the game's title screen, but they put it in front of shining bright lights so you can't actually read it. Which is just like, amen.
Did you...
They did change his name to Dr. Soap, though, which sucks, but like it's still very clear who it's supposed to be.
You saw the Saban and FF15 stuff, right?
What'd they do now?
I mean, like when FF15 was coming out, they were like, we're gonna have like a free update eventually. That's like, we're gonna give everyone little, they call them Magitech exosuits, and they were all the different colors. They were Sentai suits basically, and Saban just sued Square Enix.
Of
And
course they
there
did.
was like a long legal battle that kept delaying the release of these just update items, and eventually they released them, but like they had to take all the colors away, so they just look like generic alien suits, and it's like, what's the point of these now? They don't look, when you put them on all the characters, you can't differentiate one from the other. The only one you can tell is Gladio, because he's just bigger than the rest. But
Saban Entertainment, ruining good things since forever.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and go on to Danny.
Number 4, Persona 5. I know we're doing, it's supposed to be the best games we played this year, not just of this year, but Most of the best.
Hey, don't worry. Little Red Lie did come out this year.
Most of the best games I played this year are from this year because we had great games this year.
Woo.
Persona 5, my second favorite game from this year, and it's the best Persona game, hands down. One of my favorite JRPGs now. I really want to play this game again and give it another go, because I know it's like a 90+ hour game, but I want to put that time in again because I miss it.
You can do it. I've played Persona 4 3 times already.
Like I miss that game. It was so much fun to just hang out in it. Like, I think some of my favorite parts in that game, I always kind of regretted. I didn't really, but when it came time to do a dungeon, I was just like, I want to keep hanging out with people, not just run around a dungeon for a while. But I mean, that's not completely true because I did have a lot of fun in dungeons. But it's just like I'd get pulled away from one, and then I'd have fun in it, and then I'd go back to the other. And I'm like, oh, I'm having fun with this. I really like hanging out with the cast, and they're a really fun group. I think it's the first Persona cast I think gets it right, where everyone is just a good time. Because Persona 3 had some good ones, and a lot that were just boring. Persona 4, the only good ones the game treated like shit, Kanji and Naoto. So, like, the others were just, eh. The fox that you befriend was good, but yeah, but this was just hitting it out of the park on all fronts. Amazing music, amazing presentation. It, like, I don't remember if I said this when I first talked about it when I joined this show, but that first time I go to the hot goth doctor and just pull up her shop, like just the animation of her transitioning into the shop menu with the music, it actually made me verbally say holy shit, because it's just really slick and cool, and that game just looks so cool. I want to get back in it because I miss that. So that's my number 4 for the year.
Alright, and next is Elmo.
I feel like whenever we bring up Five Nights at Freddy's, which is not my number 4 on the list, I always
Don't worry, I'm an apologist.
Yeah, I love Scott Cawthon. He seems like a wonderful guy.
Number 4
I
is
always
this weird Christian game.
I always have to kind of guiltily apologise, because I'm a huge fan of Outlast, even though there's a lot of jump scares in it. But without the jump scares, it's still a really good atmospheric horror game.
Jump scare penis!
The best type of penis / the best type of jump scare. But Outlast 2 came out this year, and it's not on the list. But
Good.
it's
Good.
I'm looking
if it was on the list, I was going to have a really long talk with you.
Yep. Maybe that's why I put it on there. Never mind. So anyway, Outlast 2 is I've heard some people criticize Outlast 2 a bit, and I haven't played it yet. I can't form an opinion that much, but because it has generally a bit of a depressing ending, and the story doesn't seem to go anywhere except down, which is understandable for Outlast. But I feel like what Outlast 2 especially needs, is a whistleblower. Afterbirth being the worst DLC I bought this year, and Outlast Whistleblower being the best DLC, and that's what's on the list. It's really, really good. Less jump scares. It's just basically, this is a terrible comparison, but I kind of call it the Back to the Future 2 of Outlast, in that it's an entirely new story while adding things to the old story that you weren't aware of at the time. Like, in Outlast, you play as a journalist coming into a big scary mental asylum, trying to find out what's happened. And in Whistleblower, you play as the whistleblower who sends the email to tip him off, and then you're immediately forcibly admitted into the asylum for what you've done, and you see the riot firsthand that the journalist guy shows up 2-3 days late. And you're just, instead of trying to figure out what's going on, all you're trying to do is escape. And much like how Outlast has, just like in Outlast 2, how it has a really depressing ending, where you kind of accomplish something and you come to the end of a journey, but really you're miserable and everything sucks and you might have made things worse. Outlast Whistleblower legitimately has one of the best pieces of music I've seen in any Steam game. Just because you get a legitimately happy ending. You you face these horrible people. There's one of the most terrifying enemies, which is the Groom, who's, of all the really scary naked people, he's a guy in a waistcoat and posh trousers who keeps calling you darling, and he basically just... He wants to make you his wife, which is a problem, because it involves involuntary surgery, which not a lot of people survive in the game. You get to see it firsthand. And he's terrifying, and you just, after fighting against him and after escaping this crazy cannibal, you're basically limping, having been stabbed and almost mutilated and all this horrible stuff. And you come to these corridors, and it's the first corridors in the game in the original Outlast. And you get hit with sleeping gas halfway through Whistleblower, and there's a time skip, and you realise when you wake up that it's actually the end of the original game. Both games are ending at the same time, and you limp your way to the entrance, and there's this ridiculously... It's not out of place, but it's this cautiously optimistic music. I'm like, yeah, this is happening. I know this is an Outlast game, but you're legitimately getting out, and you're gonna be fine. And there's literally birds tweeting, and you're just staggering out of this horrible building, but you survived, and you're okay, and you did it. You survived Outlast. Well done. And also I'll end it like now, but also let's just say it turns out that the initial ending to Outlast wasn't as depressing as it looked. It drops some bombs like that. So yeah, basically it's more of the same scares and terrifying atmosphere. It's always been more about the atmosphere than the jump scares for me. It latches into that. Yeah. Bye.
Next for me is Shadowrun Dragonfall and Shadowrun Hong Kong, which I'm tying together because I could not pick between the two of them. Dragonfall has one of the single most beautiful main campaigns I have ever seen in an RPG ever. It ends on just the perfect note. It is like the perfect mixture of cyberpunk and fantasy, and it's like that game is like that's the game you want to show people to explain to them why Shadowrun is something a lot of people like. It is just like absolutely emotionally jaw-dropping by the end of it. Like so many emotions, so many high stakes, and like it just all comes down to just trying to help one miserable person. And then in Shadowrun Hong Kong, which is about hiding out with a group of criminals, is very much and kind of the opposite, and is mainly a character-based game where everyone is a bit amoral in a lot of ways, and it's mainly about the adventure instead of the ending, which is good because the ending of the expanded story and the extra content they released is kind of bad. But the main campaign ending is great. Basically, Shadowrun is these Shadowrun games made by Harebrained Studios are really good. I mean, Harebrained games, sorry about that. They're a mixture of tactical RPG, strategy, combat, and all that. Like, think XCOM, but simplified a little. And you get to make your own character from a bunch of different races, with a bunch of different builds. You can be a cyber hacker and like hack the web. It's lame in Dragonfall because it's still on the returns engine, but it's fantastic in Hong Kong where they just change the entire system and you get these cool extra dungeons you get to explore with all these new rules. There's a ton of different options to get past a situation. So instead of just like having high persuasion or charisma, you can use a particular skill of your class. You can use whatever you find in the area. You can have one of your friends do something that only they can do to get past an area safely without having bloodshed. It's like like Hong Kong is the perfect game if you like pacifist runs in RPGs. And Dragonfall is the one you want to play if you want a story that will leave your jaw on the floor. Both absolutely masterful RPGs, and I'm super excited about what the studio is going to do next. Danny?
If you'll allow me, my 2 and 3 are a tie, so I'll skip my next turn to talk about them both at once. Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3. I played those for the first time this year, and those, like, the reason they're a tie is because I go back and forth on which one I prefer. Dark Souls 3 I think it has better enemies, better, it looks better, it runs better, it has a lot of enemies I love, bosses I love, weapons I love, outfits I love. Like, it looks better and plays better in a lot of ways. They added stuff from Bloodborne that changes it up, makes the combat faster, and which I like. But Dark Souls 1, it's like, while it might play and run worse, something about that world design always brings me back to thinking maybe this is better. Just the simple way that the world is designed, how everything links up together, and how these different areas all interact and create the shortcuts leading into one another, and how it's just all kind of vertically stacked on itself with different paths in and out of areas. I wish the rest of the games went more like that, where Dark Souls 2 is just kind of a straight line, and Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3 are just kind of like trees, where they go straight for a while and then just kind of branch off in different directions. I really like how I think the best way I heard Dark Souls 1 described was it's a cup of spaghetti with different paths, and that makes it hard to put it beneath Dark Souls 3, even though Dark Souls 3 might be like the better overall game. But I played Bloodborne last year. I loved it, and I tried Dark Souls games. I tried Dark Souls 1 like twice before on PC, and it was unplayable, even with DS Fix. So this was my first time giving it a real shot on PS3, and I loved it. I fell in love. The world building, the combat, it's Dark Souls. Everyone listening to this has heard why has heard so much about them. They're good games. I didn't even think they were very, like, it was really hard. There were a lot of bosses I didn't think were great. I thought they weren't quite fair. They just feel like damage sponges. But there are really good ones in there, and overall they're great games. And I do think the series, I think Dark Souls 3 was a good end to that series. I'm satisfied with Dark Souls being over with that, but I want the formula to continue with whatever they come out with next. And they just teased a new project, so looking forward to that. I don't think I need to really go into why these games are so great, but I love them and wholeheartedly recommend them to anyone who likes RPGs and action games and doesn't mind a bit of a learning curve, because once you reach that learning curve, they're not hard games. They take patience.
All right, Elmo.
This and my next one are pretty quick. No shame in it. Pokemon Ranger 2.
Elmo, we're gonna have a very long
I
talk
really
after
love
this.
Pokemon Ranger. I've only
never
played
heard
the
of
two
this
of them
game.
so far. They're really, really good. It's in the whole kind of balance between the good and the bad picks. Pac-Man Championship Edition 2 changed a bunch of things in a big attempt to be different, and it was different. It was shit. And Pokemon Ranger 2 changes a couple of things, like previously you had to draw a number of rings around a Pokemon in one go to catch it, and now it just gives you basically a meter, so that you can draw 3 and then, oh, it's attacking, I'll stop, and then you draw 3 again and then, oh, it's attacking, I'll stop, and you can just chip them down over time. The Pokemon Ranger series is, I genuinely can't overstate how much I recommend them and how much I enjoy them, and I know that they have a reputation as being kind of easy spin-off Pokemon games. It's not that they're easy. There's a lot of challenge. Some of the most challenging things I've done on the DS have been Pokemon Ranger games. But the reason they feel easy is because it's possible to 100% them and get all of the Pokemon and complete all of the little side quests without copious amounts of bullshit. You never have to hang around in an area and wait for a 1% encounter. All of the Pokemon are visible on the overworld. Since you're just drawing rings around them and they become your friends, you don't have to throw Pokeballs that have a 0.5% chance of catching them. You can just go catch Pokemon, you use their abilities to get past some puzzles. There's a lot of variety. The second game does add a lot of partner Pokemon. It adds a lot of side quests that are very funny and very charming. I can't remember what the name is of the Team Rocket-ish team of bad guys, but one of the side quests is a guy who just says, "Can you go to the cave under the town and find me a nose pass?" So you go catch a nose pass and you bring it back. And he goes, "Oh wow, thanks." Look at that nose pass. Look at its big old nose. It looks so silly. And then the bad guy tune plays, and some guy out in the corner was like, "Hey, I might be from rip-off Team Rocket, but even I wouldn't be so evil as to get a Pokemon and bring it to me and then laugh at it and make it feel bad. You should be ashamed of yourself." And the guy goes, "Oh, you're right, I'm sorry. I never really thought of it from the Nosepass's point of view. Let's be friends, Nosepass." And the Nosepass is happy and becomes that guy's partner Pokemon. And it's just... every side quest in the game is just really stupid but charming stuff like that. They're really fantastic games. They are not too easy. They are
Alright,
just good.
Moving on to me. Sorry about that.
No, I had nothing else. It's done.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and pick my... Okay, yeah, Deponia Doomsday. I'm sure everyone on my Twitter is sick of me talking about this, but yeah, that was a good fucking game. I love point-and-click adventure games when they're not, complete bullshit. Looking at you, Sierra. It took me a moment. But yeah, Deponia Doomsday just, redeemed an entire franchise for me, which is an incredible accomplishment. It's amazing how lately we've been getting so many deconstructionist sequels, like The Last Jedi, Danganronpa V3, this in 2016. It's just... And they all really hate their fan base, and they are all correct to really hate their fan base, and they all make amazing art out of it. And it's especially impressive with Deponia Doomsday, because Deponia is kind of a bad series. There's just so much, I hate using this word, but problematic shit in it, especially Goodbye Deponia, oh my god. But Deponia Doomsday does so many beautiful, amazing things with this franchise that I can't ignore what it accomplishes. That is the single most perfect ending I've ever seen of any game, or even of any piece of media ever, and I don't know if it's ever going to be topped for me. This might honestly be one of my top 10 favorite games ever, but I still really need to think on that, because there's a lot in the top 50 I gotta consider. But yeah, I almost want to recommend the entirety of the Deponia series, because you have to play it to get Deponia Doomsday, even though, Goodbye Deponia is there, and it is a fucking trash fire at times, but it's worth it for the most part. But yeah, Deponia Doomsday. God damn. Go for it, Danny. Oh yeah, you want to skip your next turn?
Okay.
Was that it?
Yeah, because I basically did 2 and 3.
Oh yeah, because 2 and 3 were tied. Okay, Elmo, go.
I spent 35 hours on Free Tail Quest. I feel ashamed. I spent much longer on a game that I'm not ashamed to put here, and I feel like I should be a little bit ashamed, because it wasn't even my first time playing it this year. But just the fact that I've been playing this game...
Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yup. The fact that I've been playing this...
Moving on.
I've been playing this game for 20 years, and I still haven't gotten tired of it. It's just... And yet I genuinely feel like I should be oh, you're picking Roller Coaster Tycoon, Elmo? You didn't play it for the first time this year. Everyone already knows that you like it. It's not like you did much new with it this year, and it's like, I don't care. Fuck you. I love it. It's fantastic, and I love it. And I'm still finding new things to do in it 20 years on.
Thank you for keeping that short.
Yep.
And to the surprise of nobody, I think what my favorite game of the year was Alan Wake. To the surprise of absolutely fucking nobody who's known me more than a few seconds, I really loved the pretentious, self-insert, fiction about fiction game. Shocker. Alan Wake just hits every note perfectly for me. It had, like, as a game alone, it is really good. It's a much more tense, like, Resident Evil style thing, but action replaced with vulnerability and a lot of running, and it's just, like, really exciting. But the actual story that wraps around it is so fascinating to just dig into, and how it came about, how it reflects the people who made this game and spent so much time and money trying to realize it, that I just can't help but love how personal and yet how universal it is in so many ways. And also, I just kind of love it when stories kind of rip themselves apart and reveal, like, the writing process, the feelings that go into it, and the fact that they turned it into a really effective horror story when Stephen King arguably still can't do that. And I actually like Stephen King. Like, The Dark Half is about as close as he got to that, when he was just, like, writing under his second persona. Like, Alan Wake is an accomplishment, and it is a damn shame that it got pulled from PC release. If you have an Xbox One, you should absolutely download this right away. It is a classic that needs to be played for anyone who has an Xbox, or anyone who happened to pick it up for dirt cheap on Steam when it was getting pulled. You really should just get around to play it already. A lot of people will definitely hate it because it is pretentious and so far up its own ass, but it is the right type of pretentious for me. Like, but I noticed a lot of people seem to like pretentious, like BioShock Infinite, which just made me want to scream. But no, this is the perfect type of pretentious. It's not racist or sexist, and it's still ridiculous. A+. Go on, Danny.
Well, anyone who's been following me for more than a minute might know,
Nier Automata.
Yeah. I can confidently say that Nier Automata wasn't just my favorite game of this year, and it might be my favorite game of all time. And the only other game I can think of that would rival it in being more deserving of that title would be the original Nier. And Nier Automata is just, it's a better version of Nier. The only reason Nier might take my favorite game of all time is just because it did it first. That's an amazing game. It not only do you get my favorite game director of all time in on it, like, I think the best scenario, like, who is the best scenario writer? He doesn't, like, write everything in his games. He has a very talented writer that he works with. He writes scenarios. He writes bits himself, but, like, I mean, there's another writer who works on the scripts and stuff, and they do an amazing job. I don't have their name on hand. I didn't think to bring it up. I wish I had, but so you get him and the people he collaborates. You get. I mean, I know him, but I'm talking about, like, the actual script writer. So you get Yoko Taro and his team of collaborators, Yosuke Saito and Keiichi Okabe, and the ones whose names don't get as much recognition. And you get my favorite developer of all time, Platinum Games, with on the game design side being headed up by Takahashi Tara, who I believe he was lead designer on Revengeance. I don't know for sure, but and that's very evident in this. And it's not Bayonetta levels of depth, but it's not trying to be. It doesn't need to be. It's simple, without being boring, and that's just the gameplay. I mean, that's not all the gameplay side. It consistently switches kind of genres almost, and takes a lot more bullet hell aspects into it than even the original Nier did, with straight up Ikaruga segments that are honestly really fun. And there's a whole a boss like that, which a lot of people said was their least favorite boss in the game, but I honestly loved. It's one of my favorites. And I was reading an interview with Yogotaro where he said, like, the reason he puts weird stuff in his games like that is because it's basic game design 101. You don't want to let the player get bored. If they pick up a game, play it for like an hour, and okay, the rest of the game is going to be like this, he considers that boring, and so he wants them to not know what to expect, and so that's why he'll just shove in this all of a sudden just really, really different bit that might not even come back again later. And I love that because it keeps me on my toes. And I mean, it's hard to be brief talking about this game because I love it so much, but it's like all the right people came together. You got the Bravely Default character designer who does amazing art.
Yeah, go ahead and talk about your number one.
Okay, Dark, you might just want to save yourself some time and get a plane ticket to Britain, because we're going to have a really long talk. The reason why I've never been that much of a fan of Telltale games is because they never made Life is Strange, which is the one game that does everything Telltale games say that they're going to do. The whole story tailored to your choice, and actions have consequences that don't involve zombies. It's really good. Life is Strange did not come out this year. It's not my number one pick. This was honestly just going to be like an honourable mention until I realised it was a follow-up to a game I kind of fell in love with, and I didn't hate it, which is incredibly rare, because like Resident Evil 4, hooray! Resident Evil 5, ugh! Melee, hooray! Brawl, ugh! And Life is Strange, hooray! Life is Strange Before the Storm, also hooray! So I just made that number one simply because it's a follow-up to one of my favourite games, and there's nothing I really dislike about it, and it just does lots of things really well. In Life is Strange, you play as a teenage girl who sees someone get shot and realises that she can rewind time for small periods of time. There's none of that in Before the Storm. It's solely a teenage girl drama thing. And because of that, you still have to make choices, but you have to be quick, and you have to know there is no going back at any point. You can't choose one option, then rewind, choose the other option, get a rough idea of what happened in the short term and what's going to happen in the long term. You just have to pick and choose. The story is, as always, pretty good. This is the year when I made one of my friends play Life is Strange, and it got to the part in, I think, one of the episodes where one of the characters says, "It is hella cold out here," and instead of making fun of the fact that they said hella cold, he just like dropped his controller and did this melodramatic Life is Strange hater impersonation of, "I can't believe it, hella in a video game with teenagers talking to each other? Why didn't she say something more natural like, Reginald, it's quite chilly?" And
wow, that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
yeah, but and I love how Life is Strange Before the Storm, it makes fun of a lot of things that happened in Life is Strange. You have to get someone's keys by you have a whole variety of things. There's somebody in a diner and you have to persuade them to get their keys out so you can grab them and then just rewind time so you've stolen them. And one of the things you can do is just tip their meal on the floor, and if you do that, it's a dude named Frank, and he yells, "I was eating those beans! Are you insane? I was eating those beans!" And it became a running joke because it was such a stupid line. there's a moment in episode 5 where you're getting chased around by like caricatures of the people you've met in a nightmare, and they all say really dramatic things except Frank, who just says, "Those were my beans! Those were my fucking beans!" And in Life is Strange Before the Storm, you hang out with Frank and you're in his RV, and if you open the cupboard, there's just a massive pile of beans. and you can examine it, and he just goes, "Wow, Frank sure does love his beans." And like, you wouldn't... Not every game series would make fun of itself like that. So yeah, for making fun of itself, for being a nice continuation, for it working in conjunction with the original Life is Strange, and for just being a really good game that takes out a core mechanic, adds in another few core mechanics, and just generally lives up to the expectations of one of my favourite games of all time. Gotta give Before the Storm the credit.
Alright, I think that's everyone's number ones. And I think it's time we discuss just what the next episode is going to be. And before we go back to a regular episode where I will pick our next game, we're going to do a special, but instead of doing a Steam grab bag, I'm just going to make it a general grab bag series, a game grab bag, let's just go with that. And I decided to go with a site that has the proper, like, library of weird indie games instead of Steam, which is getting flooded with asset flip crap. Which, no. So instead, we're going to be playing some games from itch.io. Some of these are demos, some of these are finished games, some of these are game jam titles. I went ahead and picked out 7. They're either free or dirt cheap, and you can name your own price. And we will be playing the following games that I found from the anime tag.
Is Card Witch any of them?
No.
Guys, I'm coming down with a cold. I might have to skip the next episode.
Don't worry, one of them is about child soldiers.
Ooh.
Okay, we have
Naruto?
Princess's Maid. What?
Naruto? The one about child soldiers?
No.
Young Sheldon?
Okay, Okay, we have Princess's Maid, Super Yuri RPG, Waifu Fight Dango Style, Long Gone Days, which is probably going to be the good one, Ready Set Parody, I Suddenly Became a Magical Girl to Fight Alien Monsters from Another Dimension, and Anime the Visual Novel typed in all caps.
Oh dear.
I will give you guys the links in a moment, and we will talk about these 7 games next episode. For now, let's hope 2018 isn't the trash fire 2017 was.
Merry Christmas.
Oh, God. This is definitely going to be out after Christmas.
Merry New Year.